Is this thing on? Welcome to Rebooted the Podcast. I'm your host, Alida Hernandez. Come join me weekly to hear about my journey from recovery to healing after having a stroke and other life challenges. So let's get talking. Hi everybody, Alida Hernandez, your host today, Rebooted the Podcast. Hope everybody had a lovely 4th of July weekend. I know there's a lot of parties, a lot of fireworks. Not too crazy about the fireworks too much because I have animals and my dogs and the cats are really scared of them, but that's what happens every year. So today it's just me. That's what it's called. It's just me. No guests today, just talking to you so you get to learn a little bit more about me and a little bit of my culture. So I'm just starting off. I was born in New York City, 1965. And to both parents born in Puerto Rico, and my grandparents were also born in Puerto Rico. So they came over in 1945 through Ellis Island. It was an immigration, not an immigration, back then from Puerto Rico. And they came to New York, and that was a time when the United States was involved with Puerto Rico and made it a really pretty picture for everybody to come over to New York City and leave the island. And people that came over in boats. My mother came over in a boat. She told me the story that she was on a boat for a month to go from Puerto Rico to New York City. Can you imagine that? A month, 30 days, which is a 2.5-hour flight right now. It's just amazing. And she always tells me this funny story that she was on the top bunk, and I guess the boat moved too much and she just slid with the mattress and all down on the ground. You know, she didn't know what was going on. First time on a boat leaving the island. So when my grandparents came over on my mother's side, they came to New York City. They lived in a like a studio apartment, all four of them, in a studio apartment near Lincoln Center at that time. Lincoln Center wasn't even there yet. My mother actually saw when Lincoln Center was being built. So it's just amazing that my mother's still around. She's 84 years old, and she was able to experience all that. So my grandparents came over. My grandfather had very little school. I think he went up to maybe 2nd grade, but he was very intelligent, and he landed up getting a certificate, like a home. Before they used to have a correspondence school. So it was like mail in. You would study at home. You would send all your work in an envelope. You mail it to the school. They would grade it, and you would actually get a certificate or even a degree by mail. This was before internet, of course. So he landed up getting a radio technician, electronics, like electrician, radio tech certificate back in, I don't know what year it was when he did this, but back in those days. And he used to fix radios and TVs when TVs had actual glass screens, you know, the big TVs that many of you might remember if they're around my age and older. Now everybody has a flat screen, so you even forgot what a real television looked like. Exactly like the monitors, you know, your computer monitors are flat. Not too long ago, back in the 80s, right, when we first got computers, the monitors had a big, thick back because it had tubes and a whole bunch of stuff inside there. So the same thing was with the TVs. So my grandfather used to fix the TVs with they used to have these, I don't know, these big bulbs and transistors, and he got me into electronics. And I used to love tinkering with stuff, you know, with him. And Grandpa, what are you doing? Oh, we got to take this apart. Oh, good. So I would start taking things apart with him and learning how it worked, and he would show me. So I guess that was my beginning of my journey into IT, because I landed up going into IT field as I got older. But before that, so as a little girl, I grew up in New York City. I was a city girl, born in Manhattan, and then lived in Manhattan for a while till about 1972, and then I moved to Jackson Heights, Queens. So during the time in Manhattan, we lived in this big apartment building. That's all I can remember. I was like 5, right? So I remember we lived in this big apartment building, and I remember the address for some reason, but I know we used to get off on the 157th Street and Broadway subway station. Okay, and we would walk down towards the Hudson River, and the apartment building was like across the street from the Hudson River. So I remember seeing the river there, and there's a park over there. And I remember one year there was a snowstorm. It was like 5 feet of snow, you know, and I have pictures. I'll have to do a little collage and put it up on social media so you can see some old pictures of me back in the city. And so, I experienced the cold of New York. And my father was a musician. My father was a pianist. His name was Alida Hernandez. And he played back in the era during the times when Hector Lavoe and Tito Puente and Celia Cruz were singing, and the salsa was booming in New York City, because salsa really started, was a combination of all the Puerto Ricans coming over to New York, and even Cubans also, because a lot of Cubans migrated over also from Cuba during the time when the Fidel Castro regime took over and basically said, if you want to leave, they told people in Cuba, if you want to leave, you better go now. And that's what happened. So there was a big migration over of Cubans, then Puerto Rico. And during that time, they concentrated in New York City, and that's when the music started. The music was, Mark Anthony started in New York in freestyle. He wasn't even doing salsa. A lot of the artists that we know of, and if you know Puerto Ricans, there's so many in music. I don't know what it is that we have, that such a small island with less than 4 million people on the island, and we have some of the top musical artists right now, with reggaeton, with salsa, with pop. It's just amazing. And all different types of music as well. So being that my father was a pianist, he played with Joe Valle, which was a big singer back in the day. He had several records. He was a pianist for him for 8 years. And he landed up meeting my mother, who was a young composer. At 23 years old, she was a young composer and wrote many, many lyrics and music. And she was also a classical pianist. She was studying to be a classical pianist. And till this day, my mother plays, and it's just so, it brings me tears to my eyes when I see her at home playing Chopin, because I grew up with her playing Chopin and Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and Mozart. And it gives me great pleasure to see her play the piano, especially now that she's suffering with Alzheimer's now. And she hasn't forgotten her music, thank goodness of that. And so I grew up with a lot of music in my life. I took dance as a little girl, and I took piano, but when you have two parents that are pianists, it's very difficult to learn an instrument, because they really didn't teach me. They really didn't get me into the music. I really don't know why. I think it was because my parents went through a divorce when I was very young, and around 1972, 1973, they got divorced. So I was about 7 years old. And so, I was still young girl, and didn't know what to do with, my parents split up. My father moved back to Puerto Rico around 1973, I think. I can't remember exact years, but it's close to there. And so he went back there, and he continued his musical career in Puerto Rico. He played at the Sheraton Penthouse back then in the 70s and the early 80s. And I remember as I got older, I would go with, to see him play, and it was just so amazing. It was beautiful. And I didn't realize how much music was going to be part of my life until now. So again, I played piano a little bit, and I took classes from a classical pianist that my mother was taking lessons from, Zeta. I don't remember her last name, but she was a great Russian concert pianist. She was amazing. But I could never read the music. For some reason, I could not get the sound and the notes. And now with internet and with applications, I've learned now, like finally at my age, I finally go, oh, okay, the notes repeat. Like now I've learned more to learn how to play the piano. Not that I'm practicing anything right now, but so I just could never read the music. I always had a hard time connecting the music with trying to do, I don't know, it's something about doing like 5 things at one time. So you have to read the music, find the keys, play it, stay in tone, then change the piano. I don't know, I change the page. I have a hard time with like 5 or 6 things. It's like taking a step class. I could never do a step class, because it was like you have to move your arms and move your feet, and I would like I would like fall off the step because I had to move my arm to the right instead of the left or something. But so growing up in Manhattan, then when my father moved to Puerto Rico, so my life really changed, because now I spend 3 months out of the year in Puerto Rico. So on my father's side, my grandparents lived in Gurabo, Puerto Rico, which is in the countryside, and it was absolutely beautiful. When you come from living in New York City, the concrete world, right? Trees are in like little concrete. There's no grass. I mean, I grew up in the playground. When we used to go to the playground, it was asphalt. The only thing that had sand was the sandbox. Okay, there was no grass anywhere. So to go to Puerto Rico and see mountains and able to walk around my grandparents' property and pick mangoes and pick coconuts and guavas and all these different types of fruit that were just on the trees was amazing. Even food, panas and different starch, things that we eat, plátanos, bananas, all this stuff, pineapples. All this stuff was, just readily available. Plus we had chickens and pigs and cows and dogs. I mean, there was always tons of animals. And I always loved animals. That's one thing you'll learn about me. I love animals, all kinds of animals. Right now we have 4 dogs in the house and 4 cats. 2 Chihuahua puppies. One's going to New York and one's staying with an aunt of ours. But if I could have a farm, I would, because I love my animals. I had a horse when I lived in California. That was my dream as a child. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get that dream fulfilled back in the 90s when I got my horse, and I still miss her to this day. But being raised in 2 worlds, it's amazing. The culture, the difference of the culture, and not understanding. When you're a little girl, you're just going from one place to another. I only spoke Spanish at home until 5 years old. So when I went to school, I didn't speak any English. I did understand. I used to watch Sesame Street, amazing enough. But I grew up learning English with Sesame Street. They used to have the Spanish, English, what we call Spanglish, mixing the 2 languages together. And I remember learning from there. And it was hard time in school because it was the late 60s, early 70s, and segregation had ended in the early 60s. Okay, with blacks in America. But you have to also remember that being Puerto Rican, nobody knew. They were like, what are you? You're not white, you're not American Indian, you're not yellow, you're sort of brown, we're mixed. Everybody, some Puerto Ricans are very blonde, blue-eyed. I have some in my family. And then you have all the way to black as night, with black curly hair. So we've been a mixture. So I never looked at color. I never realized that we were, different in that sense, because my family we were all mixed. And being in New York City and going to school, I experienced racism during those times. I didn't know what it was. I know what it is now, but didn't know at all. And at that time, my mother has very straight black hair. I had really curly hair, brown, dry, curly hair, and I look different than my mother. So I remember being in the apartment building, and she would walk by because she was an artist and she was in a magazine and she was in the newspaper. My father was too. So they were in the entertainment industry. You would see them in the New York Post or whatever paper was at that time, different magazines. I think there was I forgot the name of the magazine, Somos or Hola, I don't remember, that my mother was on the cover of, which I still have. So they were known in town. And I remember we were walking through the apartment building, going to our apartment, and this lady was like, oh, hi, how are you? Is this your daughter? She's like, yeah, this is my daughter, Alida. And she just gave me this look of like disappointment. And I asked my mother later, Mom, why did she look at me that way? What are you talking about? And she kind of like blew it off. But I remember those things as I grew up as a little girl. Why did people look at you differently? We talk about this all the time now. People talk about racism, You have to learn that. You're not born with that, okay? I didn't know what that was. But anyway, we're going to continue the conversation on my life growing up in New York. And in just a few minutes, we're going to go to a commercial break.
Let's be honest, when you want this VIP lifestyle 24/7, or at least almost 24/7, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Now there is Club Secret, the ultimate lifestyle membership. Our VIP global brand is centered around helping people look better, feel better, and experiencing the world. We have proven world-class self-care products to enhance your outer self so you look like a VIP. We have the ultimate premium supplements and plant-based nutrition to give you the cleanest energy to help you go throughout your day so you feel like a VIP. Being a part of Club Secret enables you to experience the world like you never have before through our wholesale booking platform, luxury vacation homes, villas, cruises, and our flagship group curated escapes to the most exciting parts of the world. And we don't stop there. You are a VIP, and we want to make sure you always feel that way. We give you access to memorable experiences with VIP events centered around F1 racing, Wimbledon, Kentucky Derby, the Open, NFL, NBA, NHL, and more. Like VIP packages to the most popular concerts and festivals that we all know and love. Club Secret gives you savings on other lifestyle benefits such as telemedicine to save you time and money, popular retail brand partners, and more. So for less than Starbucks cup of coffee a day, we want you to have the VIP life every day, not just every once in a while. What's in the membership again? You get 30% off all premium product lines, save time and money at telemedicine, having a doctor access 24/7, wholesale hotel booking engine, curated escapes, VIP experiences, brand partner discounts, loyalty points on most things purchased in the community, and more. So if you want to claim your VIP status now in our Ultimate Lifestyle community, text or direct message the person back immediately that had you watch this video to learn more.
So real quickly, Club Secret is a VIP membership club that you get deep discounts on travel and products I use on a daily basis. I've told so many people about this. I don't think anybody really gets it. Okay. How many people like to travel? I just see my friends on Facebook right now. A girlfriend of mine went to Costa Rica. We have package deals through Club Secret. You just pay your membership monthly and you get these deep discounts. You can go to Costa Rica for like 5 days, 4 nights for like $500, the hotel, everything. I mean, I don't understand. What don't you understand? Join me. I want to help you live a better life. Okay, besides I have great health products, which I use, all the proteins and the vitamins, and they have facial creams. I use the Dead Sea minerals that are in the moisturizer are amazing. I use them every day. See, my skin's nice and smooth. So, but send me a message and any of my social media or at info@rebootedthepodcast.com. You can send me an email. And just let me know if you want to learn more about how you can travel like a VIP, like a rich person. Okay, I'm not rich. Okay, but I like to find deals, right? Don't you like to find big deals? Like everybody's into Amazon, right? Because Amazon is quick and fast. Well, this is such a great membership. I mean, you get discounts for everything. You get discounts for Petco. You get discounts for DoorDash. You get HelloFresh. You can get food delivered to your house. Adidas, renting a car. I went on there to rent a Mustang convertible, and the Hertz wanted $250 a day for it, and I got it for $140 a day at Club Secret. Okay, it's just like a no-brainer. It just make your life better and make it easier. So make sure you let me know and DM me. Okay. So I'm going to continue back to me growing up in Puerto Rico in the summers. So I would go there 3 months out of the year, spend time with my father, my grandparents, and I feel that it was a great honor that I had both grandparents in my life that molded me. Okay, because nowadays people don't have the grandparents that they used to. Don't know why. Our family structure has changed tremendously since back in the 60s and the 70s. I was raised very family oriented. The family is number one. And my grandparents on both sides raised me. When I was in Puerto Rico, my grandmother, Diosa in Gurabo. And unfortunately, my grandfather, Fernando, he died of colon cancer back in the early 70s. And so he left a little sooner than I wanted him to, but I still remember him. He used to be a tinker or two. He used to go in the basement in New York. They had a brownstone in the Bronx, and he used to go down there and make milkshakes and just all these concoctions and stuff like that. And I always wanted to hang out with him. And he had a dry cleaner up on the first floor. And so they were already entrepreneurs. Look at that. They were already business owners. At least on my father's side, they were. And my aunt Hilda, my father's sister, was one of the first ones in our family in the 50s to graduate from Hunter College. A woman graduating Hunter College in the 50s was a big deal. Okay. She was a nutritionist and a dietitian. Okay. Amazingly enough. And I had some other family members that became principals and deans of schools and teachers and just very servicing people. All my family's always been servicing others. And I guess that's how I landed up being servicing you and helping you guys out now and helping myself at the same time. But always cared for my family. I had my cousins in Puerto Rico, and I learned the music, the Spanish music, salsa. I learned how to dance in my grandmother's patio, outside, la marquesina, as we call it. And it was just right outside the house. And when the family would come over on Sunday, and we just hang out, put the radio on, and people would start dancing. The adults would have some rum, and they have little cocktails. We always had food, because I don't know about you, but a party's not a party unless you have some food. And we always had really good food, and I just remember that, just the flavors of the food and the ambiance of my family. And I can just see them all in my head right now, and wish that they were all here, because pretty much all my uncles and aunts in Puerto Rico are all passed. My grandparents are all passed now, and I have my mother here and her sister here. And I still have my cousins there and everything, but it's not the same anymore. When I go there, I get a little melancholy, because I remember seeing my family and little things like going to the bakery with my uncle, my tío Roberto, to go get some bread. And then we used to go to the beach on Sundays with all my cousins. And don't judge me now, but we used to have this, they used to make different types of food, but for some reason we used to eat sardines, and sardines are good. And we used to make, like, on the bread, they called pan de aguas, like bread made out of water in Puerto Rico. And we just have the whole bread, and they used to put sardines and onions and avocado. And I don't know why that tasted so good. It sounds kind of strange, but I remember as a little girl just eating that on the beach and being so hungry, because when you're in the water for like 2 hours, you're starving when you get out, So this is just some memories I remember. And that all formed on who I am, like my foods that I eat and how I cook. I learned from my grandmother. I used to watch her in the kitchen for hours every day when she came home from work. And my grandmother Pura, who was my mother's side, she used to sew ties in Ole Cassini factory in New York City in the Empire State Building. And I remember visiting her at the factory, and everybody loved her. And she was there for like 30, 40 years. And I remember just spending time with her in the kitchen. She would come home from work at 6 o'clock every day. I would sit in the kitchen. We had a little kitchen in Jackson Heights, Queens, New York. And I would watch her, and I would always ask her, Grandma, what are you making? Oh, I'm making this. Oh, what do you put in? Oh, a little of this, a little of that. So guess what? That's how I cook. I don't measure. I put a little of this, a little of that, and I know the flavors. I've been cooking since I was 11 years old. So I know by the smell of the food, I can already tell you if it's good or not. I already know by the smells. I know just by my hand gesture how much salt and everything like that. It's amazing. And a lot of people ask me now, give me a recipe. I said, I'm in trouble because I don't have a recipe. I do change it up sometimes, and my man's always getting upset. How come the soup's not the same? It was better last time. I said, I'm sorry, because I improvise. Like when I cook, I look what's in the refrigerator, and oh, that's good. Let's put that in there this time, and then I change up the flavor, and they get upset. No, I want the same flavor. I wouldn't be good at a restaurant. I would have to write everything down to make sure everything is exactly the same. But so that's another thing that I love. I do love to cook. I find cooking is kind of soothing. I use it as therapy because I do have to cook every day, and I have my family, my mother, my aunt, and we're all living in the same house since COVID. And so I cook every day. Sometimes I cheat and I'll order something outside, but sometimes we'll pick up some chicken or something like that, and I'll make rice and beans at home and make the rest of the stuff, the salad at home, I don't like really eating out too much. I'd rather have my home cooking. And so I love cooking. I love all my animals. I like gardening to a point. I do have some herbs at home, and I have my basil, my recao, which is culantro, which is a spice that we use in Puerto Rican cuisine. Also, I have wild oregano from Puerto Rico, which I got from my mother-in-law's garden. And I cut a little branch, I put it in a paper towel, and I flew over from Puerto Rico with it. And now it's blossomed, and I have a pot full of this wild oregano. And the flavor, I can't explain to you, but it's amazing. I use like one leaf of the oregano, and all my beans taste so good. Music. Of course, I love music. Talking about music, besides that, I love disco and dance music. And of course, that's my favorite. I used to have a disco ball in my living room. And in my house, I don't have one now. I need to get a new one. And my kids were little. We would dance to the disco music in the house on Fridays. I would put the light on, and we would have our own disco party. So they still remember that. But on Fridays, on every Friday right now, we're doing at Genesis Events in Pompano Beach, we're doing Salsa Fridays. So we have a DJ every Friday right now. We haven't bought the bands yet, but Salsa en Control will be back. Your favorite orchestra, right? We'll be back to play probably another couple of weeks. We're planning to see when it's a good day have the orchestra play. But come on Friday, come on to dance. Is bring your own bottle. It is really simple. You bring your liquor bottle, sealed, only alcohol. We sell water, sodas, juices, and all your mixes. We give you a bucket of ice. We give you your cups and napkins, and just come. It's like a big party. So just come over, bring your friends. If you want to make reservations, you can see the number on the flyer. It's 561-929-5243. And you'll see it on my social media as well. So you can just send me information if you need anything there, but you can call the number, make a reservation for a table. We have CDs come first serve, and come out and have a good time. The last couple of Fridays, we've had a great time. We had a good over 80 people there. We really had a great time. And we do throw in some freestyle because, come on, if you're from New York and if you like salsa from New York, you know what freestyle is. Freestyle started, okay, from that era coming out of salsa back in the 90s. Okay, Mark Anthony started with freestyle when he had long hair too. You guys probably didn't know that. But those are the eras we used to go roller skating. That's another thing I love to do. I don't do that now because if I fall now, I don't think it's going to be a good thing. But roller skating was the thing back in the 70s. I used to go to USA Roller Skating Ring in Jackson Heights, Queens, New York, off of Roosevelt Avenue. Who knows what's there now. And I used to spend Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I was roller skating all the time. We used to do disco roller skating. We would break dance with the roller skates. So this was when break dancing was happening back in the, 80s, 70s? Late 70s. Figure I started roller skating, it was like 1979. I was 14 years old. So we grew up with music. So a lot of times, our generation now doesn't understand. My kids who are in their 20s don't understand. My son calls me on Friday, Mom, what are you doing? I go, Mom, your mom's in the club. What do you mean, what am I doing? What are you doing? Home gaming? Come on and dance, do some exercise. See, another wellness, exercise. Okay, always throw some wellness in there. So come out, dance some salsa, you burn some calories. And we'll probably in our next show, I'll probably continue with just me, talking about me, and hopefully I can have my mother be a nice guest for the show, and she can talk a little bit about things that she remembers in her past with her music, and maybe I can have her spotlight some piano. Maybe she can play some Chopin for us. And you can see that little memory of my mother, 84 years old. She's still a beautiful woman. I love her to death. So I appreciate you, and please subscribe to my channels. Please download my podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and like my stuff out there so I can give you more stuff and bring you some more extra guests on the show. So have a great week and see you next week. It's Alida Hernandez, Rebooted the Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Rebooted the Podcast to learn about each episode's guests and topics. This is your host, Alida Hernandez. See you next Tuesday.